So we'll make a start. I think we're just waiting on one or two more people tonight, but um, so if I can grab your attention, guys, I just want to show you this. So this is a once it pass the ad. Oops, let's turn the volume up. So this is another program that does visualization. So it comes out of the gaming realm. Ultimate Engine or something like that is the gaming engine, and they've just designed a plugin for Revit that you can then export your model to it and apply materials. I had a very brief play of it on Thursday night. Friday night last week, because I don't really have a life. Seems okay. It's free to download at the moment and use forever until November. So if you want to download it and have it on your computer and never look at it again, go for it. So I'll just show you this video. Seemed pretty cool. Okay. Was that working before at all, or was that?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll try that again. So I think it will update your model in real time in True Motion or whatever it's called. Okay, I didn't know it could do that. So it looks pretty cool. So that was Unreal Engine, and I just went to the Twinmotion. I think it's about a 10 gig download. As you can see, it's there free until November this year. Looks like it's compatible with VR and things like that. So I don't know, you want to sort of do 3D stuff for your customers.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bother doing it in Revit. The visualization stuff in Revit is okay. I don't think they've developed it for probably 5 years or so. So it's sort of been at the market forefront-ish, and then other companies have come in and developed this sort of software from the gaming realm. And Autodesk do have another program called Revit Live, or Live, I'm not sure, where you can upload your Revit model to the cloud. It does a full rendered 3D walkable model in VR or anything like that, but it requires cloud credits, which cost money. as where things like Enscape, Lumion, and this, I don't know what this is going to cost post November this year, but it's just either an annual subscription fee or a one-off purchase, and you've got it forever. You can download, from the player I had the other night, it's got, what did it have in it? Construction equipment, so like cement trucks and backhoes and dirt piles, and you can just go your hardest from what I can tell. So it looks pretty cool. I suggest you guys download it and have a play, sort of thing. So we'll jump into our project from last week. So thanks to Vanessa for giving me her file, because I don't have one at the point we're at. So she's put a bit of cabinetry in and things like that to this project and some beds. So last week we got up to putting all our doors and windows in, making sure the dimensions were correct, putting some some entourage and cabinetry and things like that in, or families or stuff like that. So tonight we were going to go through probably the last bit of that project. So we're going to put the colour fill plan in. I'm going to put it on sheets. I'm going to show you a couple of the idiosyncrasies with the detail views in Revit. So hands up, does anyone have any, or would use CAD files for details, like wet area details, because no one wants to draw those more than once, sort of thing. Like, okay. So I've showed you guys the duplicate the view with detailing and as a dependent, I think, probably the week before last. So if you want to copy a blank copy, you just duplicate it. If you want the same annotation on that one, but to change it, you duplicate it as with detailing. And then if you want to have two floor plans that update each other, you just duplicate it as a dependent. Obviously all those are model based. You can draw detail lines and things like that on it, but they're 90% model based and probably 10% detail line based. In Revit, there is also, where is it? A thing called a drafting view. So yours might look a little bit different. I think it's the screen resolution on my computer that makes my ribbon look a bit different. So a drafting view is literally just a 2D line work, or just lines and text view. So you can import DWGs into just this view of ones that you've got from CAD already, so you don't have to redraw them. You can draw your own details in here if it's like a parapet detail and you don't want to, have a model element, things like that. If it's a wet area detail, again, if you don't want to show it as a model element, you can just draw it in detail lines. So that's really handy for those sort of details. They come under drafting views down here. So what we might do is I just want to gauge where sort of everyone's up to last week. So has everyone got their floor plan sort of finished? I'm just going to delete the sections out at the moment. Did everyone put a section in last week or not? Is that sort of where we haven't put sections in? Okay, cool. Everyone's got their room names in the project? Yep. And then just for those guys that might have their room numbers showing up, like this sort of thing. If you don't want your room number to show up, and I tend to not want it to show up sort of thing, this is one of those one cases out of 100 where I wouldn't duplicate the family. I just edit the type and untick the room name type there, or the parameter there, just so it doesn't appear on any of the tags, sort of thing. What else have we got? So that's that wall opening. Did I show everyone that door opening? I think I did at the end of last week, using the door opening instead of just leaving the wall sort of separated. Cool. So we might jump into doing the section and the couple of details it sort of asks for. If you look at the PDF reference sheet, so we've got section AA sort of down this set part of the building, and then we've got a couple of, like an eaves detail and a footing detail that sort of comes off of that. So sections are a view. So under the create, so this is where sort of the idiosyncrasy thing comes in Revit. So on the ribbon up here, you've got reference other views. So you can if you just want to draw a section through your building, you've already got a standard detail somewhere, and you just want to reference that standard detail in your drawing. You can go reference another view here. You can either create a new drafting view, or you can see here I've already got my drafting view 1, which I just created as an option. So I could just say new drafting view and just draw my section in there. It comes up with a different section head. I wouldn't tend to do this for a section. You'll notice once I draw a section, I can't make it reference the model. So it's one of those things that it took me 2 seconds to draw that section like then. But there's a little idiosyncrasy thing. So if I went to draw another section, so section is also available on your quick access toolbar. And section is a sort of 2-click process. So the first click places the sort of section marker head. And then the way that the beat goes on the section marker and also the foot is the way the section looks. I tend to always draw them the wrong way. Like I'll click on the wrong side and go the wrong way. The beauty of the section is when it's of the model type, you get your little double arrows so you can flip your section view back and forth sort of thing if you want to change the way. And you'll notice with this section now that it looks different as well, but I can't reference another view once it's drawn. So it's one of those things that you need to sort of decide before you draw the section if you want to, or the detail, if you want to reference something else straight away. You wouldn't just, I think you can change, no, okay. So I wouldn't necessarily do that for sections, but it is an option there. So if you guys just want to draw in a section, I'm just going to delete that one and that one. So draw, and if you delete a section, you'll get a warning, would you like to delete the view? And I just go, okay. So we'll get a section of this part of the building. And then again, of course, if it's blue, it's got a hyperlink, so we can double click on that to go to the view. You can also click on the view, and you know how in our levels, it had the little boxes on the side, like the little boxes that you could tick to say to put the level name and the height on them. The section's slightly different. It's just got the sort of circle with the 2 arrows. So if you click on that, it cycles through the sort of section marker displays. So you can have it as the leg, you can have it as nothing, or you can have it as another section head marker. And then the last thing with the section as well, when you're drawing them, it's got that little zigzag. So it's not like the zigzag on our levels where it breaks the line. This one sort of loosely deletes the line and allows you to drag it independently. And then actually, that wasn't the last thing with the section. So the other thing with the section as well is you can split a section. I'm not quite sure why you do this very often, but so if you wanted to, so hang on, let me just, so that's our section at the moment. If I wanted to split my section, I can split it sort of anywhere on the line and drag it back. And now my section is sort of a 2 bits of a project.
So this half shows the bottom area and another half.
Yeah. So so it shows that bit there, and then it shows that bit there. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. Sort of thing. Most of the time, it's probably, I think if you just drag it back in line, it joins it up again, sort of thing. I'm sure there is like 1 or 2 scenarios that you could probably use that for, but I can't think of one that I've ever used it for. I forget it's there all the time. I also tend to use sections just to draw things as well internally. If I want to make sure things are lining up internally, I'll just draw a section and delete it, because you can see it takes 2 seconds to draw it to get a view that might look right. or show what you want to see can take a bit longer. And then the last thing with the sections, so you'll see this blue dotted box around the section when you've clicked on it. So that's sort of your view depth. So if I go back to my section 2 now, not that this section will really show you, I can't see my exterior wall. Actually, will it show me that? See how there's no line for our exterior wall there, as where if I just click on it and drag it slightly past it, you get our line for our exterior wall, and then you can select it. So sections are really easy. Probably the most annoying thing with sections, and it's when you come to annotating it and doing like notes and things like that. So the best way I've sort of come to describe or learned to describe it. So does most people in here remember overhead projectors? Teacher at school, overhead projector sheet, writing on that, or showing you something in science or something like that. That's probably what I remember it from. So if you think of your notes on here as being an overhead projector overlay on your drawing, so if this section moves, like even slightly like that, all your notes are going to be moved whichever way you draw it. So if you do have to move a section or even an elevation for whatever reason, try and move it as straight as possible. It's not as easy with the elevations. So I would come in here, I'd probably grab the section marker if I wanted to move it, hold down Shift, because Shift will only lock it to 90 or 90 or 0, and then move it there, and it should stay in place. It's just one of those things to keep in mind more so than probably a rule, that it's just an overhead projector overlay. So if you move the view, it's going to move the text if it's not quite right too, because the text is sort of dumb. It doesn't know where it goes, as where a tag should stay with the element if it moves, but the text is sort of dumb and it's on the drawing. And detail lines, I sort of always go, is it worth modeling something, or can I just draw some trusses in with some detail lines in 5 minutes versus modeling all the trusses in a roof of a couple of hours sort of thing. So that's probably the biggest thing to remember with sections. So if I did something like that and then plonked it there and I had a whole heap of notes in here, it's all going to be moved, which I don't tend to remember until too late. So with the section, you can double click on that and go into it. So normally you draw a section at 1 to 50 or 1 to 20, depending on how much of the building you're showing. So you can change the scale here, 1 to 50. I'll go 1 to 50, and I'm just going to delete that section at the moment because I don't need it. So the other thing as well, obviously you have to, I moved this model so my levels are a bit messed up. You have to do your dog legs with your levels, so you have to break them and just do that sort of thing again. So, that's a bit annoying, but you just got the drawing of a section in not even 5 minutes of your building, so you've saved some time there. So the next thing I'll show you guys is the callout. So callouts are really section details or plan details, and this is sort of where I would start referencing AutoCAD or CAD files and drafting views more so. So you can either have a rectangle callout, it's under view and create again, or you can sketch the sort of shape you want. So again, you've got that reference other view there, and you can reference whatever you want if you wanted, or you can just draw the detail in there. And it should, so I go to that. So that's, again, a 2-click process to place the box. Anything in that box is what it will show. If it's outside of that box, it'll crop it off. And then the marker for that one as well, you need to click on the box, and then you get the blue dots to sort of move it around. So I'd sort of like to have things a bit like this and straight. So I think the question came up last week about the references in this view. So the dash and the one dash at the top and then the 3 dashes down the bottom. That doesn't fill in until it goes on a drawing. If you do the reference other view, you tend to get this sort of symbol up here. I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't look I don't think that looks very good. So you can edit the type for that detail and just remove sim there. Because you don't, so it's a simulated view. I think that's what it means. So it's not actually a model view. If you wanted to get really sort of creative, you could probably have a different color for that particular view. If someone else is picking up your job and you wanted them to know this is just referencing a drafting view somewhere else, rather than a model element. So that's the two views you can have. If you go to one of those views, that will generally cut your scale in half. So if your section scale is set 1 to 50, it'll do your call out at 1 to 25. Please never, ever, ever use 1 to 25. Believe it or not, there's students at Tafe that go, but Revit's got it, surely it's a scale. And it's like, I don't know why it's in there. It's just a BS scale. Like, no one's ever going to read, like, you're not going to get your scale ruler and measure off of it.
You ever tried to buy a scale ruler?
Lately, no.
Do you know any different ones around?
There's a couple. Generally, the Velux one, like the Velux freebies, have got like those sort of weird scales on them, but
This Officeworks is like 4 or 5 different ones.
yeah, there's like the normal one,
You get
100.
called out once and then there again.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of those triangle ones that had 1 to 300 on it. That was a good one to get. But so you can just change the scale down here to 1 to 20, probably.
How did you do that call out, sorry?
Yeah.
So back to view, and then callouts next to section. So you got rectangle or sketch. So we'll do one down here. You can also change the detail level of your section. I think your callouts probably go to a default of medium or fine. Oops. And then you can also double click and accidentally do what I just did to change edit the crop if you want to move it in and out. So quite often what I'll do.
So how do you get that view?
So that's the section from here.
How do you get the view of that little?
The detail.
Oh, so it comes up under. I don't remember where it comes up under.
Call out 1.
So it comes up under your sections. So you get section 2 call out 1, section 2 call out 2. Obviously, you name that appropriately, like you'd say eaves detail or something like that, or footing detail. So sort of this is where if you were to be working for yourself or someone, you'd probably have a view template set for details, so it would make everything the same, and then you can just annotate it. You don't have to remember to change it to 1 to 20 every time you open it up or create one. The other thing with these plan details or callouts, I should say, they work on the floor plan as well. So if you wanted to do a connection detail for something in here, you can do that as well. That one didn't change it for some reason, so they apply in section and in floor plan, and you can do them in I really messed moving that model up, didn't I? I don't know why you do them in elevation, but you can do them in elevation as well. So they're really cool. Probably most of the time you'd use them as these days, now that I know better, that they move. Like if you move the section, they'll move as well, sort of thing. I'd probably do them as detail lines in something and only do them once. Because, You only ever need to draw a wet area detail once or a fixing once sort of thing. I wouldn't necessarily do it too many times. So what we might do now is we'll do our colour fill legends, and then we'll do something before we do that, and then we'll chuck this on a sheet, and then I reckon that's probably this project done. And then we'll start the last project, which is probably going to take a good 2.5 weeks to sort of do in class. And then there's also the last week, if you finish early, there's that rendering concepts assessment that's not an assessment that you guys can do that's pretty self-explanatory with what you need to do and to get some renders out of Revit, and then you can forget that and use Twinmotion instead, sort of thing. So one thing I would do before we do our color plan is I would just duplicate our floor plan. So you can right click on the plan, duplicate. I'm going to go with detailing because it's probably easier to delete your dimensions in the view than it is to put the room names back in. Or you can go to view and go plan view types and floor plan and untick the do not duplicate view, and it's much easier just to go right click and duplicate the view with detailing. Then I would just go right click one of my dimensions and select all instances in view and just go delete, just to get sort of a blankish copy of the floor plan up.
What did you just do? You selected what?
So I just went to I right clicked on the ground floor plan and then duplicated the view. So you get duplicate. So you could duplicate it as a blank copy and put all the room tags back in, or you could duplicate it with detailing and just delete all your dimensions.
Yeah, so the delete all the dimensions, you just
chose
one of them.
Yeah, so so there's a couple ways to do this. So you can do a Windows select and use the filter tool and go check none and just select dimensions there and delete it. Or you can just right click on one of them and then select all instances. So you have two options here. So you go in view or in project. So obviously in project, if you selected that and then press delete, that would get rid of all of your dimensions no matter wherever they are. It's probably not a good one to ever do. So you want to choose in view, visible in view, and then you can just hit delete on the keyboard and that gets rid of that straight away. So it's smart. And then what I'm going to do for my section marker in this view, I'm going to right click on it, hide in view. If I had a couple of sections in this project, I'd probably choose by category. If I only had one, I might choose by element. And then I'm going to use category tonight, just to hide that section in that view so you don't need to see it. Because again, this sort of the color fill plan you want is sort of a representation of the floor plan more than anything. So the color fill plan. So there's a couple of steps to doing this. I've got to remember a little bit because it's a bit set up for me at work these days. So under annotate. So if you are using the full version and you're using it for not just architectural purposes, you can do a color fill schedule for ductwork and piping. Never created one, sort of thing. So down the very end, you've got color fill. So you've got the three. So you can do a duct legend, a pipe legend, or a color fill legend. So if you click on that one and save the project and just place it on your floor plan somewhere, and it'll come up. Theoretically, the first time you create something, it should come up with to choose the space type and the color scheme. So everyone got that? So go back to annotate and color fill. and should get this sort of dialog box that says choose the space type and the color scheme. So I'm going to change mine to rooms and to department. And you get no color defined, which is all cool. So this sort of legend is just something that you need to put on the sheet before, or I tend to put on the sheet before I do the scheme. And then you can click on your legend and hit edit scheme. So there's a couple of options here. So you can have HVAC spaces, rooms and spaces. So we're going to just make sure it's rooms. So you want to change the department to name and go OK. And you notice how now I get a lovely array of pastel colors set to the room names. So the issue with not the issue, doing it this way means you might have, if you wanted to show all the bedrooms in one color, you'd have to go in and change all of the bedrooms in to a yellow, let's say, because that's easy and it's there. So that's a little bit time consuming and that's been annoying. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want it. Let's go back in, edit scheme. So there's a whole lot of identity data that you can assign to a room. So you can assign, this is all the identity data that you can assign to a room. So an area you can't assign to the room, it's already worked out for you. The base finish, the ceiling finish, the department, the floor finish, the number, the occupancy, the occupant, the perimeter is already worked out for you, and the wall finish is all data you can assign to a room in Revit. So quite often I would probably just go occupancy and go OK. It's not going to come up with anything here at the moment. We haven't done schedules yet, have we, at all? No, that's what I thought. So if you hover over your room, I can just show you this. And then you can come down here. This is where all your identity data is. So I think I changed it to occupancy, so I can say living. There, you notice it now comes up with the living. So if I come in this one and say living again, comes up. If I find the room. So you've got to click that crosshair sort of thing to change any data in the room. So let's say bed. There, it assigns a color. Then you can go back into your edit scheme and change these colors to, if you don't like pastels. What I might do is I'll quickly show you how to do a room schedule, because you can then assign this data and not have to then go and hit select the room and all that sort of stuff. So there's two ways to create a schedule. So I'll show you this way, and then the next project will probably show you the other way, hopefully. So if you go back to view, because it's a view you want to create, so you've got schedules here. So it's a schedule / quantity. And then you just want to scroll down in categories to rooms. And just leave it as a scheduled building components and new construction. And go OK. So you can add your name and your occupancy there. You can also add your you can add whatever data you want out of the room here. You please. For this sort of if I wanted to do my color fill plan as bedrooms and living areas and wet areas and circulation space, I would probably just add my name and my occupancy. You can add and subtract stuff to this at a later point. So you can just go OK. It'll open up the schedule, and then you can just select from the drop down. So I can say wet area there. So it's just that easy. So if you guys want to have a bit of a play around with doing that, you can change your color fill schedule, and I'll come around and help anyone that needs a bit of help. Kitchen. I got 2 living. So this data that you've got to put in is sort of just something you type in. there's no auto select. You just need to type it in. If you get the spelling wrong, it'll create you a new room category. If you, so you want to add to go back to foods. Can you add the name as well? And then if you click that one, there, moves up to the top. So that's the first one. And then you can just type in what's in there.
What do you mean by an occupant?
Or occupancy. Is yours occupant or occupancy?
Yes, it says occupant. What does that mean? So I've got laundry. Who's the occupant?
Whatever you want it to be.
Dog?
You can say, if I go to my room schedule,
Is that
I used
function
occupancy. You can also, like, for this sort of thing, you could set department and say produce, checkout, groceries sort of thing. It's really up to you how you want to drive whatever you want, color scheme you want to do. So make it up. That's what I use, sort of thing. So yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yep. So you need to set occupancy of the room. So we create that schedule. So we go to the room schedule. We've got occupancy. Now you see type in there stuff. If you can just type in one, 2, 3, 4, like you need extra ones and utility with colors and things. So it's sort of. So there's a couple of ways you can do your room schedule or your colour fill plan. This is the easiest way. Probably the most benefit to doing it this way. That's okay. So we go to schedules.
Yeah.
Schedule employees.
Yeah.
Scroll down rooms.
This thing's endless.
Exactly. Yeah.
This program is endless. I'll take over the world.
Yeah, that's what you say.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scroll down the name.
Yeah.
As long as the colour fill schedule is set to that one.
Yeah, and what was, yeah.
And okay, should open up, and then you can just type it in there.
Okay.
You can just type the name in.
Yeah.
And then once you type it in once, you can use the drop down. The sort of data you're putting in the model.
Yeah.
Sort of things.
So what kind of data am I putting in it?
So for a bedroom, I'd say like bedroom, and then for a living room, I'd say like living room, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I use it for.
Okay. No worries.
Just so
You go to the one.
yeah, I'm not sure how. You might have placed the room more times than.
Yeah, I reckon I might have. Yeah, that's right.
But I can run through that.
That's
Like probably should know.
It was probably when I was initially messing around with it.
Yeah.
That's obviously, yeah. Well, that's what he did before.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where he's going with this.
So we go back to the floor plan.
Okay.
So, put your
或者需要什么东西来这个，他说的问题写吧，应该是。
That's why I don't like the numbers there on the tag. Don't worry about deleting it, just put them all in. Go back to your schedule. You can just click it and I wouldn't worry about it.
Cool. Because it's just what offers you all the different colours. I didn't change them.
哇，你那几个都很喜欢。
Schedule, I've got like, all my rooms are done.
Yeah. I was going to go through that. Like flooring or something like that and delete a little bit later.
Well, it just came up.
I did it.
Yeah. I want to send them all the same.
I don't remember.
Just recognise that you're a professional.
Oh, yeah. I don't usually come to the rest of it.
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
Can I please have your help?
Yeah.
Okay, so I lost everything from last week and I'm just trying to fix it up. What is the next stage?
So you go back to your floor plan. So that's okay.
Just quickly read it.
That's okay.
I've been shuffling it around.
Don't worry about it too much. It's more just chuck some changes up. Don't worry about it too much. Just chuck some rooms in so you can see. Yeah. So the blue bits of the room, and then just the room, and then the numbers is the tag. So.
Sorry, how did you do that?
So architecture. So architecture. Room. So room tag is. With an extra room tag in it, you just can't put room. So you can bring the room, but it doesn't like that. Like the room outside the room. So you just go around and name those sort of random things like bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, and then room number. So you just do that, and I'll come back and it'll get the colours of the tag. Yeah. So the way that it's done there, it's done on name.
Yeah.
So it gives you a name, it colours every name. And so I think that's probably more usable.
Yeah.
Probably what you use a lot more. You're not going to
adjust the control.
Yeah, you can control at least all the bedrooms one colour.
And similar areas, yeah.
Yeah, similar areas of the same colour. As though that's a bit like I don't ever see a use for that.
Yeah.
I see more use for it, particularly if you're doing an extension. Existing proposed sort of thing like that's really helpful. If you're doing just like heritage or something like that as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
As you name it.
So I can just grab your guys' attention. So probably the question is going to come at some point. And I know some of you guys have got extra rooms in your project by mistake. So what, I'll just add some extras here.
Oh, yes.
So what happens if the customer decides to delete this, let's say, delete these 2 bedrooms off and the toilet off and just have a really, really small house? And you then delete those rooms. So you delete the tag, but the room still remains sort of thing. Or you might have placed some extra rooms by mistake last week or something like that, which is easy to do. Now that you've got a schedule that you can see your rooms in, you've got all these additional rooms in here and things like that. You're like, oh, I don't want those. Or a good one is if you've done a job, you've deleted everything in that job to start your next job, all the rooms are still going to remain in that job from your previous project. And obviously, if you keep doing that 3 or 4 or 5 times, you're going to have an extra whole load of rooms in here. So you can you can select a room here, you can delete the row from the schedule, and it'll also delete a room and tag with it as well. That's probably the easiest way to, first of all, find out if you have an additional rogue room or 2 in your project. and then delete it, sort of thing. You can also, so schedules are also really good. So this project already has a door schedule in it as well, but you can also click on the room and go show, highlight model, sorry, and it takes you to where that particular model element that you might have selected out of your schedule is. So that's really helpful if you've got a rogue odd size window or door in your schedule and you're like, where is this? Particularly on, obviously not a project this small, but on something a bit bigger, or if you've picked it up from someone else and they've put it somewhere else and just hidden it, there's another one. You might go, where is this element? You can go to a schedule. Where's my schedules going? So you can go to your room schedule, click on it, highlight in model, it'll take you there. It's smart, it knows where it is. So to delete, you can also hold shift down and select multiple things and delete them. You can also hide them from your schedule as well. Whoops, that hides the column. You can resize schedules here and things like that as well. I'm sure that'll get covered in the next assessment we do, so I'm not going to really worry about it too much. You can also, probably way more importantly, you can export your schedules to Excel or .csv by going File, Export. Scroll down to the bottom, Reports, and you can export your schedules there, sort of thing. That's a handy one to know if you want to export it, if you never need to send it to an external contractor to get quotes from, or you're tracking something and things like that. Or if you wanted to get quantities and costings out of projects. So does a color fill schedule make sense? Sort of. To be fair, I never ever used them until I started working at Metricon, and now I use them all the time. So I didn't see an issue. I didn't see a point for them.
Just like floor coverings.
No, I just like to make the floor plans a bit more real estate-y for designs and things, or for custom designs. So as we're Adam, isn't it? No. Adam? Ryan pointed out, you can also assign floor coverings. Sorry, I'm a shocker with names. Oh no, yeah, Travis.
Travis today.
I do know my own name.
As Travis alluded to, you could also, if you felt so inclined, wanted a cheats way to show floor coverings on your floor plan, you can edit the scheme. You can change the hatch pattern to, I'm going to go triangles, and you could show them that way. That's a cheats way to show floor coverings on a floor plan really easily. Obviously, you'd set your color fill schedule to floor finish and not occupancy, because you might want to have a different color scheme on a different floor plan somewhere else. So they can be very powerful now, but that's what I find the best thing to use them for, is to either show someone, I'm pretty sure probably out of your schedule you can quantify it to say the house has 33 square meters of bedroom and 100 and something square meters of living space. But we'll run through that probably, or they'll show you the schedules a bit more in the next project sort of thing. So, are we almost done this one, I think? I think we might be. So, probably the last thing I haven't shown you how to do sheets in a project yet, and insert sheets and create more sheets and things like that yet, I don't think.
Or site plans.
All site plans. I don't show you site plans in this one. Or they sort of show you topography in that in the next one, but not really a site plan, so to say.
Sorry, for this schedule, the legend.
Yep.
Area, all the size for the test is the standard.
Yeah, so you can change that. I think in here you can just change the text type to whatever. So sheets. Obviously, if you've completed your job, you've dimensioned it, it all looks awesome. How do you get it out of Revit to give to the builder to build it from? So sheets, obviously the way to do that. So if you scroll down your project browser, you have sheets. So the architectural template will give you one sheet. It'll be an AO sheet, which I don't think anyone really prints on these days. I hate to think how much printing a job on AO would cost. Particularly if you've got to run down to H and get it done. Officeworks, yeah. So the AO sheet's not very helpful. There's two ways to create sheets in a project. There's the slow way and the quick way. So under view, you can add sheets here. So you can go sheet, create a sheet in your document. So this is the way I don't use very often at all. So I tend to go right click on sheets and then you can go new sheet. So a sheet is effectively a family in Revit. So it's set up to be AO, A1, A2, A3, A4 sort of thing. So if you go load, brings you back to our content and it's title blocks. So Revit, if you download it at home and it works correctly, should have an AO, A1, A2, A3, A4. They are probably the easiest families in Revit to manipulate because again it's just lines with some funky tags or labels and things like that. So we're just going to choose the A3 one here. So you notice now that you've got select title block A3 and just a new placeholder. So, and then I've got A102 unnamed is my A3 title block. If you go back to your A101, you can actually change the family type from the AO metric to the A3. So effectively you don't need to delete it and rename it. You can put this anywhere on the view that you like. It will remember to print in that line sort of thing. So if you end up having a bigger project, you can move the sheet to it and things like that. So once you've got your sheet set up, so we're going to produce, well, we can produce a couple of sheets if you want. So let's maybe put 5 sheets in. So it's just a case of going right click new sheet 3 more times. So you can rename them as well. So you can right click on them. I think if you do a quick double click, or a slow double click, sorry, it opens up the rename. I'm not going to bother renaming this. I might just say floor plan. Or F2 on the keyboard if you don't, is a shortcut to renaming it. So I'm going to go floor plan, color plan, 2 sheets of elevations and 1 sheet of sections and details. Does anyone have a guess at how you might put a view on a sheet? There's a couple ways to do it. One I've never used apart from in this room, effectively. Has everyone got their sheets named adequately or sort of understands the process on naming sheets? The other thing with the sheets as well, so obviously you've got things in here like owner and project name and floor plan and project number and issue date and the author and who it was checked by. The scale will automatically fill once there's a view on the sheet. The numbers sort of there. Revisions will sort of, I don't think we talk about and then you can change that logo. The easiest thing to do is to change the logo. So you just need to edit the family, put a new picture in, sort of thing. So there's two ways to put views on sheets. I'm going to show you probably the least effective way to do it. So under your view and sheet composition, where you could have created your sheets from or your title blocks from, you can go place a view. It opens up this dialog box with all the views in your project, and you can select ground floor there and add it to the sheet, and does that seem pretty easy? So I'll show you the other way to do it on the next one. So I'll pull in my color fill plan. So I'll grab so you can just drag and drop out of the project browser and onto the sheet. Seems way easier than having to filter another dialog box. Hopefully you're pretty familiar with the project browser now, so that just seems way easier. So the only issue with this is our view is too big for the sheet. So there comes a time in a project, if I was doing it from scratch or if I'm doing amendments, so I'd work in the views, and then there'll be a sort of tipping point once I start putting stuff on the sheets, just start working on the sheets. So you can modify your views once they're on the sheet. It's not stuck in stone or anything like that. So you notice you've got up here, you've got activate view. If I just deactivate the view first. So I can't select anything in the view. I can go activate view. I can also now double click in the view and it activates the viewport sort of thing. So this is where your crop region and crop view comes into play. So as a standard, Revit will crop the region not very well. So it'll just give you a big box around your project. For a project like this, it's okay. Well, not good because it's too big. For some bigger houses, it might be fine, sort of thing. So down on your bottom panel, you've got do not crop view. If you've got a cross next to that, you want to make sure there's no cross. And then you've also got the light bulb in the crop one, so it's the two little L's. You want to make sure the light bulb is on that one. And then it's just a case of grabbing your crop region. We're going to cut our elevations out. And dragging it in so it fits on the sheet. And then you can turn your crop region off if you want, or you can leave it on. And then you can double click out of the view to exit the view. But there's one issue with doing it that way, is the view title basically draws itself to the size it was when you pull it on the sheet. So at the moment, our view title is this one here. This has there's a little bit of a trick to this one. If you want to move the view title anywhere, you need to not have anything selected first, and then you can grab the view title and move it. And then if you want to drag this line in a bit closer, you need to select your view and then get blue dots and allow you to move the view in. So that again was select nothing and then your view title to move the view name, and then select the view to grab the to activate the two dots on the view title, and then you can manipulate that line. I'm not very much of a line person these days, so I like to have it as short as possible. You can turn that off later in the family, but I know you can't. The line has to always be on for some reason. So that's a little bit annoying. If I was to, you can't really crop your view because you don't know how big your A3, well, you might know how big your A3 sheet is, but it's a bit hard to crop it before it goes on a sheet, if you know what I mean. Like, you couldn't go to your floor plan here, turn them on here because that's where you can do it. Like, I don't tend to go super close to the building these days because there's another issue here. So you could do something like that. I'm just gonna, and then when you pull it onto the sheet, see how it's a little bit more size appropriate, still not perfect, and you can modify it that way. So what we might spend the next sort of 5-10 minutes doing is just pulling stuff onto sheets and sort of playing around with that view title. So you can pull your elevations on. So north. So the same thing happens with your north, south, east, west elevation. So you can add them on there like that. I messed Vanessa's model up, so so if I try and pull on a north elevation as well at the moment, see how it gives me this error to say it's already placed on a sheet. So that's why you've got to end up having duplicates of views so they can go on separate sheets. And once you put your section marker, or once you put your section on a sheet, and rename the section if you want to. I've just got a section 2, and pull your callouts on. Not a very good sheet. So notice how it goes to A105, so it's view 2. So you can see the 2 there on sheet A105, and that you're never going to mess up your cross-referencing again. Has everyone done cross-referencing on drawings? Does everyone hate cross-referencing on drawings? Yeah, I hated it. Thankfully, I've never had to do it on a CAD. I had to do it on sheets for a project, but that was a bit annoying. That was a bit different. So have a bit of play around with that. You can just activate the view there as well. So the issue with, I'll just show you and then I'll let you go. So I'll activate my crop region. If you start bringing it too close into the building, an annotation crop is selected. Anything outside, so annotation crop is the other one that may not come up straight away, but it's under the properties. It's got annotation crop. So any annotation outside of that, so if you have text that goes, excuse my gibberish. So if you have really long text and it goes outside your annotation crop, it'll get cropped, so it won't appear. So text is something, I haven't covered text too much, have I? Have a play around with putting the views on the sheets and getting your crop region all right and things like that, and then I might run through text and then we'll probably wrap the project up. You can also add your schedules to sheets as well. So I want to add a room schedule there. It's just, again, dragging and dropping. I find by far the easiest way is just to drag and drop out of the project browser and not worry about the first way I showed you. Because you should be relatively familiar by then with your project browser. Yeah, so we get a load. Find title box. And that's all being A3. So obviously you can spend a fair bit of time putting stuff on sheets and getting it to look right. Depends on how much of an OCD person you are. I like things to line up, and Revit doesn't do it very well.
So I did the sheets, but I'm back onto the previous one you told me to do. And
Yeah. Oh, so you put stuff onto the sheets and that? Yeah. Alright, cool.
just the next bit, I don't know how to do the
Color field.
color field.
So we go and say, color field down here. The color field goes in. Yeah, so you just press that on the sheets and then just over there. Yeah. And then choose rooms and department for just choose department. Okay. Yeah, so the scheme. Do we change the color to name? Okay. Let's go okay. Okay. So you've done it. No, that's okay. So, should probably explain. So, that's the room there. So I go about 2, and then that's the number. So that would be like room 1. So the one in the box is the number. So for like if you're doing a building like this, like you're not going to have room names. It's like this room's 311. So it's building 3, level 1, room 1.
Yeah.
I think that's the how it works underneath. It's not level 3, that's for sure. So what I would do. So with this one, so in theory, like you should have this one, because you've got template, you should have a template or something. I normally untick room numbers because I don't ever want that to show, and then you can just go through and say that one sort of looks sort of thing. Yeah.
And after that, what do I have to do? Like after doing the names, what is next?
So that's it. If you want to just have it as a room name schedule, color field, or if you wanted to say occupancy, so you want to change it to occupancy over name. So you grab your thing, go to scheme, change that to occupancy. So that's where you might say living room, bedroom, wet area sort of thing. So the easiest way to do that is to go view, schedule. Because all mine are like really small.
Okay.
Which is probably why.
I'm like trying to get that, and you're trying to get this one.
Yeah. So schedule there. Yeah. And you just scroll down to rooms. So it's all alphabetical. So.
So you got that in view?
Yeah. Schedule up there. You can also come down here and you've got schedules. Schedules that you put like. So there you grab your name and you grab your okay. And then you can say like bedroom here.
Okay, so to like manually type everything in
one at least once. And then for like the next one you can use a drop down, so it adds a drop down. So it does take a little bit of time to do that in the first time. But it pays off. Like because you can put floor finishes in all that room data and things like that. So now it changes to bedrooms. So you can click back to your floor plan and just finish naming everything.
Yeah.
And then go back to that schedule and then you can say like living room and sort of stuff like that.
I got a list in there, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
They're not in there.
Just in properties, scroll down. Just hit escape. Color field scheme. You set that to department and set that to name. Okay. Okay.
also the hinge, but yeah, it's just high from the view. How do we get those?
Oh, which ones?
Oh, just like all the annotations and
Oh.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I just yeah, because when I was going around getting rid of stuff, I was just hiding
Oh.
the view. I just wasn't sure where to go.
So down here you've got the building elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that.
Okay.
So you just reverse all your heat on view by category.
Yeah. Cool.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's RH. I use HR, which is temporary hide reset.
Yeah.
And RH, and I'll just press the button
Yeah, right.
occasionally, but that's what I tend to use a lot of.
Yeah.
So RH is
Yeah. So most of these ones are view.
yeah, view sort of specific, and
Yeah.
sort of like wearing glasses and that's probably the most simple I use the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your aim is to put surveys into Revit or
It's just more of a familiarization. So
yeah.
it's good people set the big hardware on site and then it's tough. Going back to one of these, which I haven't made yet. We've got this one.
Yeah.
But the is that right? So that one, which isn't.
Yeah.
How do you shrink and condense it?
So you double click. Oh, so can you got the site on this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Double clicking. Come down here to these things. So you got show crop region.
Yeah.
So that's your crop region, and then that one as well is do not crop view. So I just drag this in.
Yeah.
Just do this. So now it's not cropping it.
Yeah.
So quite often I'll work in a view like that. It's not cropped.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah. Easy. That's really easy.
Yeah. And it's just kind of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Sorry, how did you get this one again on view and
So you already got your own schedule there. So now you can go like, I don't know what we call it, circulation space or something.
is there anything that inserts it like into?
No, it's just whatever you want to type in there. Yeah.
Okay, so what would a folder be?
I would say circulation space, but I can't do that sort of circulation space at the moment. So. Yeah, and then linear or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's literally what you want to define it as.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I might actually go to yeah. Yep. So you grab that. So it's sort of like changing the window and door. So you grab the panel and the properties. Yeah.
你先点动它，然后右击。
So everyone's sort of got something on a sheet now. So I think probably the last thing we'll do with this model is I'll show you guys how to do interior elevations or set up interior elevations. Because there's a couple interiors people on that in here, isn't there, from memory? So obviously, you want to see your kitchen and bathrooms and things like that, and joinery, I guess. So if you guys just want to go back to a floor plan. So interior elevation, so I just uncrop this. You'll also notice your elevation markers get a sheet on them as well. So we go to view because you want to create a view. And then you've got an elevation here. So there's a couple of elevations you can create. So I think there's an elevation and a framing elevation. I've never used a framing elevation. It must be for structural steel and things like that. sort of thing. I tend to use the elevation marker. This one you can reference other views as well. I'm not quite sure why you would. So you have two types of elevations. You have a building elevation and an interior elevation. So to create interior elevations, we're going to choose the interior one. So for this one, I'm going to just choose my bed one. So you'll notice I get a circle, which is called the view, and then the little beak on it is like the view reference. So it will select the wall that it's closest to, sort of to look at first. So if I just place that in the middle of the room to begin with, I get, in my project browser, I get interior elevations. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't automatically name things. It does sort of suck off the room name. Wish it would. To get your other elevations in that room, you want to grab the circle. And again, we get that box with the tick. So what do you reckon happens when we tick the box? If I can tick the box. It's only going to let me tick one today, too, isn't it? And then you get your interior elevations as well. The screen seems quite flickery tonight, doesn't it? So you get your interior elevation sort of set up straight away, and then you can change the scale and do your joinery or things like that. So interior elevations are just as easy as exteriors. It's just that's the tool. And then again, like if you move that, the same thing happens. If you've got text on your interior elevations, it's an overhead projector overlay. So if it'll move the model but not the text sort of thing. So just keep that in mind. So we might finish there with that project. So what we might do now is we'll have probably a 10-minute break or so, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to probably start you on the last project. So the class exercise 3. The first 5 pages are just, I don't know, first 4 pages or 3 pages are just dribble. So basically this is what we're going to end up creating, this sort of model. So it's got topography, it's got staircase, it's got railings, it's got curtain walls, and things like that in it. So hopefully tonight we'll get our levels set up and our walls put in, and then next week we can do the other. I'll let you guys sort of go and test your knowledge. There's a couple of things in it tonight that are a little bit not explained in here because they've changed the software since this was written. So we'll go through that. So have a break, go outside in the cold corridor if you want, sort of thing. And then we'll come back about 7:45 and start the next project. So we'll make a start on this last project sort of thing. So if you guys just want to jump in and learn, if you haven't done so already, open up the PDF and chuck that on your other screen if you didn't print it off at home during the week. You'll also want to use the exercise 3 start project file. You can get away without doing that if you are working outside of Tafe and want to do it again. Just some of the walls it doesn't have names for, like it's got a generic 300mm wall, as where this refers to it as being a 300mm concrete retaining wall. So it's just that sort of thing is the only difference really to it. And you just want to upgrade the model when you start it. So once you've got that open, just save it onto your desktop or your USB. So the way that we're going to set this project up is slightly different to what I've sort of been telling you guys. So we're just going to, in this one, it says just to use one level for our floor levels and not have like another level in there for our ceiling levels. We're just going to follow the instructions for this one, but just be aware when you're outside using it, you probably want to, if you're doing houses and things like that, you probably want to set up a ceiling level as well and things like that, just for the way our drawings look in Australia. So if you've got that saved, we want to open up our south elevation. So this sort of goes through a couple of keyboard shortcuts and little tools as well to sort of help you look at things. ZR is zoom region. You can also do ZF, which is zoom fits. So ZR brings up the cursor there and allows you to zoom into that bit. To be honest, very rarely use that. I just zoom in with the mouse wheel and out sort of thing. Like, the only time I would do is like zoom region if I had a big floor plan and just wanted to zoom in on a little bit. If I remember the tool was there, I'd probably just zoom in. So you just want to have a look at your zoom. You want to zoom into the level markers. So we're going to set up our levels first. Whoops, I messed that up. So we want to double click our. We want to rename our level 1 foundation level. 00 foundation. Sorry. So this is. It's sort of trying to teach you like naming conventions. So it'll go 00, 01, 02, 03. So in your project browser, it will appear in chronological order. And then yes to renaming corresponding views, and OK. And then it's not very light. And then once we've done that, we want to rename level 2 lower level. Oh, 01 lower level, sorry. And yes to renaming corresponding views. And then we want to go ZO, which is zoom out. Again, I'm not quite sure why you just wouldn't zoom out with the mouse wheel, but that's probably me being an experienced user. I just forget about the simple tools that are in the program. Cool. So now we want to go to our architecture panel and our datum. It's down the very end again. And we just want to create another couple of levels. So in the options bar, we want to go offset of 3000. And we want to choose the pick line tool. And probably in this one, we want to just check the plan view types we're creating and probably untick structural plan and go OK. That's probably not covered there. And then we just want to create another 2 projects or 2 levels above our existing one. So just click once. It's a little bit of fine mouse work to get the cursor on the right side to get the level to go up. So we want to have 4 levels. And then just rename our level 3 as O2 entry level. And rename the corresponding views. And rename 4 as O3 roof. And rename our corresponding views. So, the numbers in our project browser or in our levels, so 0, this is a little bit difficult for me to wrap my head around still. But so Revit has, probably the surveyor in the room is probably going to be really good at this. So 0 in Revit is 0 for a surveyor. Like, so for a survey, if it's AHD level, 0 is 0. So if you have a building that's at 100, like TBM or something like that, the best way I've worked out is to actually move the project up to 100 meters. So move your whole project up to whatever your bench level is going to be, and then it's a lot easier a bit later. But that's just an FYI. If you ever work out a better way, let me know, because it's something I'm trying to work out for work at the moment, and it's just depends what survey you get, if it's TBM or AHD, and where it is as well.
Most arbitrary levels are just taken off the curb level out the front.
Yeah, so 100, yeah.
If you're within like a kilometre of the coast or something, that's HD.
So everyone know.
And some councils
So TBM is temporary benchmark, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then AHD is Australian height datum. So I've done a lot of work in the hills, so that's normally around 300-400 meters above sea level. And then TBM is just relative to a point on the site, so the surveyor can go out and set things up for you if you're lucky enough, if you're building with a surveyor to do set out for you. So basically in this project now, we're going to set up our levels to, our foundation is going to go to minus 4270, our lower level is going to be minus 3050, our entry level is actually going to go to 0, and then our roof level is going to go to 3050. So what I would do here, I would start at the bottom and just move them down, rather than moving my O2 entry level down to 0 and then having 2 levels on top of each other, sort of thing. So again, it's just a case of clicking in there and going minus 4270, and then minus. So if you wanted to move a project up to 100 meters, you just put in 100 meters, whatever the number is, sort of thing. So thankfully, this project, we don't have to go around and do the dog legs and do the zigzag and break the lines, because none of the levels overwrite, like text overwrites each other. So this guide also says to save a lot. I'm just going to save it. Revit, obviously you guys have been aware the last couple of weeks, because it said, would you like to save the project when you try and do something? It's got the inbuilt function to save every half an hour, or prompt you to save about every half an hour when you do something. So thankfully you shouldn't lose too much work if you have an error. So now we're going to create some walls in this project. So we want to open up our 00 foundation level floor plan, and we don't see anything, which should be right because we don't have anything in our project yet. So we want to go to architecture and wall. So we want to select the retaining 300mm concrete, and we want to select or verify that wall center line is selected, which should be straight out of the box. Then we also want to verify that chain is selected, and we also want to make sure the level is correct. So we want the height to go up to our O2 entry level. And then we should be good to start drawing. So this guide also tells you to draw the way that I've been telling you not to draw. We'll just ignore that fact. So this tells you to draw anti-clockwise. That's where I tell you to generally draw clockwise, in a clockwise direction sort of thing. So we just want to draw a line at the moment, a 12.
You haven't got chain?
Sorry? Oh, I haven't. No. Yeah, we want to have chain selected. I must have unticked it before. So we want to draw a line that's 12 meters long. And then we want to go up 6.9 meters. So let me start that again. Architectural wall, chain. And then if you start drawing it back towards where you started from, it'll snap and give you an intersection point of where you first started your wall, and just finish it there and hit escape or hit modify up in the ribbon. And then we want to go to our O1 entry, lower level, sorry. So the reason you're seeing the walls that you've just drawn in your entry level, on your lower level, is because obviously they pass through our lower level, and are cut by our lower level as well. So that's a bonus. Just remember, if you can't see anything, always check the underlay. It's a hint for later, to see if it's on and which way it's looking. So now we want to draw some other walls of the same type. So we want to go back to wall, just verify that we have our foundation. Sorry, we want to go foundation 300mm concrete wall. At the moment it's set to unconnected, so we want to select it to our O2, no. In the projects, in the properties, we want to set the lower level to our foundation level, and then our top constraint to our top level, and just clear any base offsets that might be in there. So essentially we're just drawing a wall between our foundation and our lower level at the moment. So it should be 1220 high. I'm going to assume that it is still set to wall center line.
I haven't got 12.
So the base constraint should be foundation level. And then, so your base, so change that one to foundation. And that one's O1 entry, that's lower level. Sorry? O1 lower level. So everyone's got 1220. So we want to start down on our bottom wall, and we want to go 1950, and then come up 1500, and then come across 3150, and then to finish off, you just have to keep dragging it up till it intersects, and you should be able to draw it that way. So I'll chuck those dimensions on there for you guys. So you want to come across 1950, go up 1500, then come across again to the right 3150. And then this one, it should intersect. You could put the dimension in if you want, so 5'4", and then 5 meters. And then save your project. So the reason we are not seeing the reason in this view we are not seeing a really thick line and any hatch pattern is because this wall's only coming up to the base of our floor level. So if you remember, you cut planes at 1200, so it's just touching the level it's on. So it's only just sort of showing you it. If you have a look, your underlay should be set to base level is 0, 0 foundation, and our top one is 0, 1 lower level. And we're looking down. I'm sure if I was to change that to look up, oh no, I'm not going to lose it. So that doesn't matter at the moment. So if you guys just want to save that, and then we'll move on to creating our 3D camera view. Is everyone up to their camera view? Yeah.
They're top constraint.
Yep. Something like the base sort of height is the same or something like that. Cancel. So at the moment you're setting both. So you're trying to clear that to 0.
Yep.
So you're setting both constraints to the same level, so it's trying to draw nothing.
Right. Okay.
So you need to select the top constraint needs to be that 01
Lower level.
Yeah.
But then this is one.
And then if you go to 0 now,
That's where that comes up. Yeah. Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't aim it the right way, but it's in the wrong spot. That one. No idea why.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
Alright.
Couldn't tell you why. Because you should be able to draw something in random elevations.
Yeah.
So 14 and it doesn't. Couldn't tell you why it does like that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so it's the same wall size. It's just. So you want to use the. It's okay. You don't need to. So you haven't used the start file. It's got the walls built in, but that's okay. It's just the walls pretty much. Everything else is the same. So just use the 300 generic sort of thing. So everyone's got their walls in now. So if you're confident, you can go ahead with this if you want, and not wait for me, or the rest of us as well. Got your walls in.
No, I just can't connect the last one.
I think your walls are set to the wrong level. So it should be 0, 0 foundation, 0, 1 lower level. No, that was right.
So I should be able to.
You shouldn't see the hash pattern, so it's like that. So you don't see the hash. You just see the. So you hold down Shift.
5-4.
You don't. You shouldn't have to put. So you shouldn't have to put. So you don't have to put that dimension in. So it's the levels wrong for this. So it should be set to 0, 0 foundation and then 0, 1 lower level. So you don't see the hash. And then we can just double check. Yeah, cool. That should be fair. What was that number?
7. 16.
If you are going ahead, just make sure your dimensions are right now, because it does become a lot more painful to fix them up later. That's right now. Cool. So for those following me along, just to double check, the dimension overall should be 6900 and the length one should be 12. If I can get it to pick that point. 12 meters as well. So this is sort of something you want to check, obviously, when you're starting a project. You want to make sure it's all right. Because it's a lot easier to fix now if it's slightly out and you know what dimensions you have or need, than get another 20 steps down the track and go, oh, hang on, it's wrong, sort of thing. So we're going to create our 3D perspective view of looking towards our building now. So you want to go to View and 3D View and Camera. So this one can sort of just go anywhere as long as it's sort of top right of the building and just looks past the building. And then I think it says to save it as to building, or rename the view as to building. And you can save your project as well once you've done your camera view. Okay, so it's easy to feed. So that line. No, the line, don't worry about the line. What we'll do
So
first.
can we multi-select
Uh,
those 3 walls and then adjust them?
yeah. Yes and no. Do them all. We'll just make a project a little bit more simpler too. You do the tab. It's gonna select everything.
I was thinking hold in control and do the
So you can,
yeah,
or you can
yeah.
move that way as well.
Yeah, that's what
So,
I
yeah.
And then we go to
And then at the moment, so you just go entry level. Yeah. Yeah. It's much easier to fix now than a couple of steps down the path. So has everyone got their camera perspective in? So if you want to jump back to your entry level floor plan now. Has anyone worked out what the trick is? I dropped the hint before. So if you can't see something in a view, what do we reckon it might be? Close. What's the other one? So you got underlay. So this is the one step it misses and it catches out everyone. I normally get, where's my project gone? So again, because the cut plane is at 1200 off this level, nothing is touching that cut plane at the moment. There's no underlay set, so I can't see anything. So you want to come down to underlay, select that to O1 at lower level and O2, and now your walls come up. So we've made sure that our dimensions are correct. Again,
Can you do that again?
the underlay.
The underlay.
Yep. So in the properties, you've got underlay about halfway down your properties. So you just change that to foundation level. Doesn't really matter what level you set it to. Probably foundation is probably better actually for this. So your base layer, base level wants to be your foundation level, so you can see all of your walls that you've drawn already. The accuracy of this model is not super important. Just it's about the process. So I have some people who get these measurements a bit wrong and then it doesn't work sort of a bit later, but that's okay. It's just about the process. So everyone got their underlay working? Yeah. No. Mine's at
These dimensions, we set to 1 dimension.
you must have moved the
Go to elevation.
position of the elevation marker is not the same.
No.
Just do
Yeah.
just select the one.
Measure. Yeah.
And then you can sort of move it over and measure it roughly. It's pretty bad, but yeah, it's not very helpful.
We're on a different level. Isn't that the same?
Oh, you know why? Because I moved that.
Yeah, and yeah, oh yeah,
And base.
yeah, and you probably accidentally grabbed the elevation. Yeah, lining all that stuff up is like just detail lines and moving it to a line. Cool, so we're going to draw our other walls now. So this one's a bit important. We want to make sure we set the location line of the wall correct. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So if I just show you, if you keep drawing like you have been, so you want the generic 200mm wall. So I'll just draw it like this. I don't want you guys to at the moment. And I'll just find my section tool. And my section's on the bit crooked. Whoops. That's the one disadvantage to having escape and other buttons around escape, is you'll probably hit the wrong one. So I drew that wall with my location line set center. You don't want that, so we want our inside face of our two walls to line up. So we want to make sure we change the location line of our wall to finish face interior or core face interior. Depends on what sort of construction you're using. For these generic walls, core face or finish face interior will be fine. I think the instructions just say core face. So you can either do the options in the ribbon here, or you can do it in the properties. So I'd probably go properties, so I'd go core face interior. Our base constraint is our O2 entry level, and then up to our roof level. And then again, it's a case of drawing in an anti-clockwise direction. Now I want you guys to stop when you get back to that 11,950 wall. I want you to stop at 11,950 and not continue drawing over the other part, because we need to set, remember that's a different base constraint we need to set that wall to. So if you're having a bit of a difficulty to get it to sort of snap properly, you can use the SE for snap ends. And it will just keep going. And then just check a 3D view. Should look something like this. You could also check your 2 building view. So the next walls we're going to draw are going to be these walls to the front of our building. So we're going to go back to architecture and wall. Change the base constraint to lower level. And this one you can start on the top and just continue around. Like so, and then just check your 3D view. So the reason we've done that in 2 walls instead of just being 1 wall is so we can have 2 different base constraints. And then later when we change it to a curtain wall, it's a little bit easier than changing the entire wall by mistake, sort of thing. And then once you finish that, save the project. So everyone got their exterior walls drawn? I think your base constraint might be wrong. So that you've just chosen the wrong thickness of wall, but that should be bad.
Yeah, I never actually select to
其实不会错，就是你 level 不一样。
the dimensions because I tried and it's not showing me what you should be there.
Okay, so as a default, it's set to full sense line as a default, so see that we set up.
原来
So I don't,
移动不去。
yeah, so I'm not quite sure why I wouldn't pick that before, that's why I moved that off.
Okay.
So in this way, it's just easier to move on. That needs to be. So, the way to fix this, or the way to fix this is to now just do a section that way, and do a section that way, and aligning walls on here, that.
What was that exactly?
So you see the line tool?
Yeah, the line.
Yeah, so pick the face you want to go to, and then pick the face you want to move. Just chuck, just double check the dimensions, I'll chuck that on the screen. Sorry guys, just bear with me for a sec. Is that readable? I think that one might be wrong. Or yours. Because you probably just copied it up. Did you copy it up or did you do the line? Or when you created it, did you go level again? Probably tell us. If you copied it up, it probably wouldn't, it just copies the level, but that's okay, we can add the floor plans later. So you go to view. Plans. And that's not floor plan, floor plan. You can shift select both of those. Or control, yep, and create floor plans. And they go, yeah, and you just have to do the overlay. Yep.
I have the same problem. I haven't got my head around it, obviously.
Okay.
It should obviously finish here, so.
So that one should be that should be roof, go through. Yeah. And the same for the other ones.
And which floor are you saying, roofs?
So that'd be unconnected, I reckon. So we do that. Yeah. Edges is easy. And then, yeah. Yeah.
And that looks not that high.
It does, it's just the other one. It's just that side. You're looking at the other side that you can't see.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So it's just, yeah, pan around.
Cool.
You got it all right?
I added, yeah, this one, and then I'm adding the lower level
No.
now.
Yeah, so you just need to change the base constraint to
Oh, okay, so you don't have to go do.
I would say yes, you do have to do it in 2D, not 3D. It just confuses most people. So I think that's what I'm doing.
Because it's very confusing in here. I thought you go click here and you do the upper bit, and then you go there, you do the lower bit. Or is this one way of doing it instead of selecting them separately?
No, so when you go wall, your architecture wall, so you finish face interiors, so now you have a list. So you want to trace along that.
Inside.
Yeah. So you want the finished face interiors to line up. So you might have been doing it from the outside.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. You can delete those sections as well.
I can go to it to match up, like says core face of interior.
Yeah.
But I can't. Okay. Go there.
Yep.
And I'll go there.
Yep.
There.
Yep. Yep. Let's have a look at 3D. Just go to default 3D, change hand.
Sorry, where?
This one up here.
Oh yeah.
Just, you can see. Cool, that looks right. Good job.
Thank you.
So we'll add our interior walls now. So we want to open up our O1 floor level plan, if it's not already open. So this one's just going to be the generic 200mm wall as well, which will probably be selected from the last time you drew. So this one we want to make sure our height goes to our O2 entry level. And we set the location line to wall center line. And we want a clear chain or untick chain. So have I got that PDF? So we want to sort of draw something in here that sort of resembles that, and then we want to, well, my process would be to draw something that sort of resembles that, then put the dimensions in, make sure it all works with the dimensions, and then do our split and then trim to corner extend, which we're going to do in a bit. So I would just sort of draw something like that. I've unticked chain as well, so it allows you to do this. So I would just draw something like that in there. And then once you've drawn that in there, I just use the dimensions. So make sure everything works. Was right. Remember, if you just messed up like I did and you want to add another dimension to the string, you can just go select the dimension and edit witness lines and fix it that way. And then remember, the dimensions are just a byproduct of where the wall is. So you need to move the wall, not the dimension. So you want to select the wall first, and then the dimension should highlight, and then you can say the right numbers. That might be handy. So the one thing with these dimensions in this project, you'll notice that the lines sort of go into the job. Not really sure if anyone likes that sort of thing, but just ignore it for this one. And never use this template or this job to start a template from or a job from. have it like aligned to the wall almost. Yours won't do that. So don't worry about it. So, has everyone got their lower level walls in that's following along? And they're right?
How do you move them again? Sorry?
Sorry?
How do you move them?
So you want to grab the wall and then change the dimension to move them. Everyone's signed the roll tonight? Pretty sure you have. Yeah. So now we're going to go through the trim or the split line, split wall tool, and then trim to corner to sort of make a hallway. So I'd go to modify, split line or split element. SL is the keyboard shortcut. Jeez. And then just split it anywhere in the middle for that hallway. And then you go to trim to corner, not a line. And then it's a 4-click process to sort of do that again. So I'll just go through that again. So go to split element, click on that one, and then trim to corner. So you can click it that way. So notice how I get a blue dashed line in the middle of that wall. That basically tells you how the corner's going to finish. And then you can just trace it like that.
How did you cut it the first time?
So split element, that one there.
That one.
This is... So I reckon we'll finish it off tonight adding the doors if you're following along with me. So we'll add our walls to our upper floor level and then we'll add some doors and then I reckon we'll call it a night. So if you've got your bottom floor walls in or lower level walls in, you want to open up your O2 entry level. And just make sure the underlay is set to our O2 entry level so we can see our walls that we've just drawn. Now it says open our O2 entry level, which we've done. Go back to the wall tool. I'm guessing it's missing that point. Verify that we have chain selected. Sorry.
What have you done? Sorry.
Open up our O2 floor entry level, sorry.
Yeah, got that.
I've changed the underlay so we can see our walls underneath.
Got that.
So, I'm not sure why it says verify that chain is selected, but I'll ignore that for the moment. So you want to right click on one of your lower ground floor walls. Can everyone select their lower ground floor walls, or some people can't? I can't select mine. Does anyone else have that issue where you can't right click or select an underlaid wall like that? Yep, cool. So, trap for young players. Down on the bottom right where we have our pin and a cross next to it, we also have underlay, and there's a cross next to mine saying you can't select underlaid elements. So if I take the cross away, I can then select the walls. So then I can right click and then go down to create similar. And then I can verify that change selected there. And draw some walls in. Oops.
So the create similar is kind of just save all the setting you did before.
It's just create, like, so if you want to put other doors in, you just right click that, and then create similar.
Exactly the same setting.
So rather than going, like, if I had a door in this project, I wouldn't have to go up to the door and then find it, and I wanted to create that door specifically somewhere else, I just do that. Like, that's what I do most of the time. And again, just use the dimensions to sort of drive where it is. And then save your project once the walls are in the right place. So if you go back into dimensions, unless you want to work out what floor is it,
Oh, I see.
yeah. So you got 471, so it's there, so just set 480. Yeah, you should be able to select what it is. No, you need to look at it again. You don't have to. Otherwise, you can do it. I mean, you should probably do it quicker. You can also grab that second footer and drag it in. Unfortunately.
This line I'm with at the lower level of
Probably, if anyone has the movement,
Yeah,
might be easier. Yeah, might be easier to start from scratch, sort of thing. So.
No, it clear. Yeah, change.
Is that right? Is that the right dimension?
Actually, no, I just drew it on there.
So, has everyone got their upper floor or their entry level walls in, and they're in the right spot?
Just keep forgetting how to do things. I'm selecting it, but it gives me these weird elements in
So
here.
it's probably worth using the temporary. They're the temporary ones. I'd put some dimensions, proper dimensions in now, and so annotate.
Oh, annotate.
Yeah, and then the line dimension at the very beginning. Faces already selected, so yeah, that's cool.
Go here,
Load
Yeah.
factory.
and then drag it out there.
Yeah.
And then just forget it commands.
Yep, so that one's right. So
That's
just
it.
so that you're going to select the wall. No, this one. You're going to move that one over. So that one. See how the dimension goes blue now. So now it's 447.
It's amazing what it does.
Yeah. That one makes it over 100 already. So, but you can use the temporary dimensions in that sort of simpleness. Temporary dimensions are fine when as soon as you sort of start getting that sort of stuff, it's just like.
Then you've got to do maths and you think, what's the
Yeah,
point?
like I'll just put a dimension on that and do it that way. So we'll try and finish off by putting some walls in our doors in our project tonight. So we need to load some doors into this project. So you want to go to door and then load family. And it's probably going to remember that you've just been, if you've up to this point, you've just loaded some title blocks into the last project, unless you close Revit. So you just need to go up here, up one level, back to our Australian content, and you go doors. So we want to load in our bifold 4 panel. So just load these in one at a time. So our bifold one, and then we're going to load in our double glass one. And then open that one. And we also want to load in our single glass door family. So I guess this is beneficial where it remembers where you last loaded something in, so it takes you straight back there. Single glass, where is it? Single glass one. And then it's a case of we want to open up our O2 entry level if it's not already open. And we want to add our double glass door in the size of 1830 by 2134. 1830? And this is where you can use the temporary dimensions to sort of place the door roughly. So we want it to be 320. So remember, the closer you're in, the smaller the increments of the snap is. So you can just place it in and then select your door after the fact as well, and use the temporary dimensions to move it, which might be a bit easier. So we want that to be 21. 21 from our exterior, like our first wall that we drew, so that you can use the temporary dimensions to change that. I'm not quite sure why the numbers are.
Yeah. Just either way, this way if it's correct, another way will be coming to 300.
Yeah.
It won't be to 100 and anyway. Secret.
I have friends.
Yeah. I don't know why that's maths doesn't work, but
Yeah.
You collect the box.
where's mine?
Yes.
This is right as well. I know yours is 23.
Oh, Oh, I know, because this 407 of this.
Oh, yours is center,
That's
but
internal.
mine's internally. Yours is center.
I know why. If I move that way.
I'm not quite sure why mine is wrong, but I'll just ignore it for tonight.
Yours in, yeah, yours internal.
I should refer to one I've done before, but. So we might just add our exterior doors and then call it a night tonight. So we just need to add our single glass door of a size of 915 by 2134. Don't ask me why they're not right door sizes. So with this one, it's probably a bit hard to get it to snap to the middle. So again, I just place it in and then just use the temporary dimensions to move it. 192.5, isn't it? So you're not going to get that with placing it in a temporary dimension. You're going to have to override it after the fact. So we might leave it there for tonight. So bring your file next week on your USB or grab the same computer if you haven't bought one this week. So we'll continue on with that. So probably next week I'll just get you guys to jump straight into it yourself and I won't follow you or make you follow me. Just because as I can just see that there's various people at different points and things like that. So the question is, I'll just pause this. So yeah, next week we'll continue on with this project, and then as you can see, like if you've been following me, we're about, I don't have page numbers. Oh, we're about 13 pages into 93 pages. So oh no, we're not even that far. We're only 10 pages into 93, but it's very detailed in its layout, so that's why it's so long. But enjoy the long weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, catch you next week.